Hello. If you can look at this man and this man and be so enraptured that you make a fan cam, a velocity edit, or even a stan account, despite what they're known for, you need help, babes. You need help. Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today, in light of You Season 4 Part 2 coming out, we are going to be talking about a phenomenon that I've seen on the internet time and time again. Whenever these shows or movies about serial unalivers come out, where it seems like by and large, we, not me, have a sort of fascination or obsession with these serial unalivers because of the actors that portray them, which can be very much so problematic, which we're going to get into. But before we do that, if you are new around here, welcome to Imurgency, which is a brand new name for this series inspired by this commenter here. So if that kind of content interests you, or you like all things pop culture, TV, fashion, and commentary, then you should probably hit that subscribe button because we are so close to 200K and you're not gonna wanna miss when I post. Also, while you're at it, you can follow me on my social medias here at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And don't forget to leave a like on this video because it helps out so much with YouTube algorithm. With that said, let's talk about serial unalivers. So like I said, this video was inspired by the recently released Season 4 Part 2 of You on Netflix. And if you're unfamiliar with You, it basically follows this one serial unaliver, Joe Goldberg, as he serial unalives different people and tries to find some sense of love and affection from the partners that he dates, but then ends up, spoiler alert, unaliving. And with this most recent season, I've seen so many different takes. Like, some people really love Joe as a character, like love his writing, love just his essence, while others don't seem to really get the appeal. And this brings up the topic of when is it okay, or is it even okay, to sort of romanticize these serial unalivers in media? Because it's no secret that this has been a thing for ages, like even in the heyday of serial unalivers like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. There are people that would be sending them love letters from prison, despite knowing all the gruesome and horrible things that they did to society and to people as a whole. So yeah, this is nothing new, but I feel like the conversation has evolved a bit as time has progressed. And now we as Gen Z are the main target audience for all these production companies that create all these different TV shows and movies revolving around the dramatization and romanticization. Damn, big words, yes! And the main reason that this is even a talking point is because this portrayal and this hyper visibility given to these serial unalivers, got away with it and did what they did, is so problematic and so just distasteful because of the way that these shows and movies present it. And this is not a new conversation. Every time a new serial unaliver show or movie comes out, as well as the My Friend Dahmer movie that came out a couple years ago starring Ross Lynch. And one of the first main gripes that people have with these dramatizations of these actual serial unalivers is the people that they choose to fill these roles. So with the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix series that came out last year, they had Evan Peters play Dahmer. And if you know anything about pop culture or just TV in general, you know that Evan Peters has been known to be a heartthrob in the Gen Z and millennial community for years now, namely getting a lot of popularity from his roles in American Horror Story. And then in the Dahmer movie, you have someone like Ross Lynch, who is also seen as a heartthrob, who is everyone's crush in Austin and Ally, and as time has gone on, the internet has fallen more and more in love with him and has a solid fan base of people that just admire him and will support anything that he does. Now, that's not a bad thing individually for them. The problem with this in relation to the representation of serial unalivers is that it's promoting the narrative that serial unalivers, specifically Dahmer in this case, was super charming, super likable, and despite all the gruesome things that these movies present and show, and putting it behind an actor that people already seem to love, only further encourages the romanticization of these evil people that existed in real life. And there's a whole other conversation about whether the real life Dahmer or other serial unalivers were really that charming and really that, you know, convincing and conniving to get away and just get away with all this stuff, or if they were just average looking white men during that time that could get away with, because you know that makes the people in charge of finding these serial unalivers look better. But that's not directly the point right now. The main thing is that by using these conventionally attractive and highly favored actors, Hollywood is essentially immortalizing these awful people that existed in real life, but repainting them with a pretty face, with someone that people actually genuinely love. Which is made even worse by the fact that everyone in Gen Z was not even alive for the Dahmer era, so they would not know. So unless you go looking for it or you're especially interested in that case, you're not gonna necessarily know who he was, what he looked like, but you are going to know the face of Evan Peters as Dahmer. And that's gonna become a more close association just because of that media exposure. And that's not even the most problematic bit of it all. Like, yes, the portrayal and romanticization of these serial unalivers in media tends to glamorize the brutality that actually took place at that time. But more importantly, it's insensitive and honestly disrespectful to the family families and the victims of these horrible, horrible people, because they are very much still alive. Oftentimes the families of the victims themselves do not and have not given permission to really have their stories told like that or dramatized in the way that they are in media, which is awful because a lot of times these things end up being blockbusters. So it's not like you can necessarily avoid being reminded and seeing what tragedy and trauma was inflicted upon your family. A more recent example of this was with the Dahmer Netflix series, in which many families of the victims that were shown in the series came forward to express their disapproval of the show. For example, Shirley Hughes, the mother of Tony Hughes, one of Dahmer's victims in the victims portrayed in the Dahmer series, said that the director's portrayal of the events didn't happen like that in real life, and has questioned how it was even possible for the show to get made without explicit permission from the victims' families. Going further to say, I don't see how they can use our names and put stuff out there like that. And that's really unfortunate because for the people that actually lost loved ones to these serial unalivers, not only do they have to relive their trauma, but then they hop on the internet and see friggin' fan cams and friggin' velocity edits of this person who's supposed to portray their loved one's unaliver and who's supposed to play their loved one fighting for their life. Like, honestly, be real. And according to the LA Times, the director of the Dahmer Netflix series reached out to around 20 of the victims' families and friends to get input, but said not a single person responded to any of their inquiries. Which, you know, maybe that's a hint. If you're reaching out to 20 people and not one of them wants to talk to you, maybe there's a reason for that. So by and large, it's not hard to see how the romanticization of these serial unalivers in mainstream media can be problematic and just downright disrespectful. But with that said, I feel like it also brings up another conversation of whether it's okay for serial unalivers to be prevalent in media at all. And if it's at all okay to be obsessed with a serial unaliver. In my opinion, I feel like there is a huge difference between sensationalizing actual unalivers and standing shows and characters with fictional ones. And this is where You kind of fits in. Penn Badgley, who plays Joe Goldberg on You, talks a little bit about this in an interview where he states that for You specifically, it's not necessarily the fault of the viewer for falling in love with Joe because he's written in that way by Netflix. But for these other shows and movies where actual serial unalivers are written about and portrayed, the onus of falling in love with them kind of gets a little murky.
What is your message to people who are finding themselves attracted to serial killers?
Yeah, you need to look at that inside. Now, to be fair, with our show, you're meant to fall in love with him. That's on us. Ted Bundy, that's on you. Jeffrey Dahmer, that is on you. That is on Netflix. That is squarely on the shoulders of Netflix. I don't have answers at this point. I do, but they're long. And yeah, it's weird, man.
In fictional series, nothing is real. Like, nothing about that is real. Like, that was headcanon. That was something that some person or a group of writers made up and were written specifically for you to be engaged and to likely support that character. Because if you're not supporting the main character at any point during the show, why would you want to watch it? So characters like Joe Goldberg on You and Dexter from Dexter are written to be intriguing, to show a sense of humanity amongst all of their inhumane actions. Like with Joe, you have this constant internal struggle of wanting to be good and wanting to be a better person, while also falling into these habits and patterns that contradict everything that he says that he wants out of his life. And another plus, these characters don't have actual victims, like real victims. So you end up standing an effed up fictional character as opposed to an effed up actual individual that has done some actual effed up things. Not excusing the attraction or obsession at all, because I'm not one to yuck someone's yum, but that's a little yucky. Actually, very much so. But let's focus on Joe for a bit. And consider this a spoiler warning if you have not seen season 4 of You yet, because we're just getting right into it. But like I was saying, season 4, we get a really deep dive into Joe's psyche. And we essentially see two versions of Joe. We have the base Joe, or the Joe that's in control most of the time, that wants to be a better person. He wants to be loved and to love someone unconditionally and has some base level form of humanity. And then you have his other half, which if you see in part 2, which is objectively the better half of season 4, you find out that his darker half has been creating all of the problems of this season and has literally become an obsessive manifestation of evil. And him going back and forth with his humanity and his urges to unalive someone, of course, are dramatized and played up and are almost cartoony in a sense. But the show always seems to give Joe some form of silver lining, some form of redeeming quality or some relatable quality where people could be like, you know what, I understand and I have some compassion for Joe, despite all of the awful things that he's done. Like, the show presents most of his underlying problems to be stemming from like mommy issues and a fear of perpetual loneliness and misunderstanding, which I feel like is real for a lot of people. So when they see Joe go through that, they're like, wait, I too got mommy issues. I too don't want to be alone. Let me steer this man. Which is not right because that man is a killer, but he's not real. He's a fictional character. So is it a little messed up that you might be feeling some things towards Penn Badgley, or sorry, Joe Goldberg, after you see him chop up someone to I Like That by Cardi B? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But again, fictional character, but still kind of weird. So yes, it is still very weird that these different production companies, and Netflix specifically, has been so keen on humanizing and giving the other side of the story that most people don't hear about these serial unalivers, fictional or not, and specifically to an audience that they know is going to make a viral moment out of it. Because the more you interact with any form of content, the more likely you are to have a strong emotion one way or another. When that strong emotion is towards someone that has committed literal atrocities, there's something not right about that. Like, I knew we were personally done for when I saw the edits on TikTok of Evan Peters as Dahmer, of people making fan cams and edits of that one scene in the Dahmer Netflix series where Evan Peters is making one of his victims dance to whatever he had playing on the TV. Like, that was sick. That was very much sick. Now, I really don't know if there's any specific right answer or any solution that really can be taken besides, like, you know, stop doing that, or at least if you are gonna do it, be more tasteful and take the more fictional route. Or even if you want to take the non-fiction route, don't humanize. Don't make these people sound decent. Don't give another point of view because they don't need it and they don't deserve it, frankly. You don't need to make them seem like they are these smart, conniving, charming people that just had a really messed up past that made them who they are today. Because there are also plenty of people that go through very traumatic and awful things, much worse, that don't end up becoming serial unalivers. So let's end that narrative collectively. Entertainment, Hollywood, you hear me? You hear the voices going through the screen? Let's stop. Cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the representation and portrayal of serial unalivers in media, specifically towards Gen Z? Do you find a problem with it? Do you also think it's kind of messed up? And what do you think the industry should do as a whole to change, if anything at all? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Again, if you're new, hit that subscribe button, follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and leave a like on this video before you head out because it would mean so much to me. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.